Good evening. Thank you. I'm Andrew Bing, and I will be the hearing officer and facilitating today's hearing for the Maryland Transportation Authority, abbreviated as MDTA. This is the final of 3 public hearings the MDTA is conducting for the Bay Crossing Study Tier 2 National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, Draft Environmental Impact Statement, or Draft EIS. A virtual hearing was held on Monday, February 9th, and an in-person hearing was held on Tuesday, February 10th at Broadneck High School in Annapolis. Before we get started, we would like to acknowledge and thank any elected officials joining us this evening. And I'd also like to just thank Kent Island High School and their staff for welcoming us and really accommodating us tonight. I will be the hearing officer and am responsible for running today's public hearing. Today's hearing is being held jointly by the MDTA and the Federal Highway Administration, and on behalf of these agencies, I welcome you. The purpose of this hearing is for interested parties to learn about the Tier 2 Study Draft EIS, Alternatives Analysis and Environmental Impacts, to review the MDTA's Recommended Preferred Alternative, abbreviated as MDTA RPA, and to provide written and/or verbal testimony. We hope you have had the chance to review the public hearing materials and draft EIS on the project website or at one of our draft EIS viewing locations or during tonight's open house. Today, I will introduce the MDTA Bay Crossing Study project team members who are joining us as panelists, share a video that reviews and summarizes the public hearing display boards, explain Title VI and the Civil Rights Act of 1964, review the hearing procedures, and identify ways for you to comment on the draft EIS and the MDTA RPA. I will then begin public testimony. Today's public hearing is being audio recorded. Please note that you cannot provide testimony remotely during the in-person sessions. The official transcript of the public hearing testimony will become part of the project record and will be available for public review on the Bay Crossing Study project website. Additionally, the audio recording will be available on the project website. At this time, I'd like to ask the panelists attending tonight's hearing to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Andrew. Good evening. My name is Melissa Williams. I'm the Director of Planning and Program Development with MDTA.
And I'm Heather Lowe, MDTA Manager of Planning and Community Relations. We would now like to show a pre-recorded video that provides an overview and summary of the public hearing display boards. The video is approximately 20 minutes long. After the video concludes, we will begin the live testimony portion of tonight's public hearing. We will start the video now.
Welcome to the Bay Crossing Study Tier 2 NEPA Public Hearing Board's presentation. I'm Melissa Williams, MDTA Director of Planning and Program Development.
And I'm Heather Lowe, Manager of Planning and Community Relations.
The Maryland Transportation Authority, or MDTA, in partnership with the Federal Highway Administration, or FHWA, is conducting the Chesapeake Bay Crossing Study Tier 2 National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, which has been evaluating alternatives that address existing and future transportation needs across the Chesapeake Bay and along the US 5301 approaches to the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. The MDTA evaluated 7 alternatives and has detailed the results in a draft environmental impact statement, or draft EIS, now available for public review at baycrossingstudy.com and at several study area locations listed on the website. As part of the ongoing federal NEPA process, the MDTA is holding public hearings in February 2026 and accepting comments on the draft EIS through March 9, 2026. The purpose of this video is to provide a summary of the draft EIS and the MDTA's recommended preferred alternative, or the MDTA RPA. The MDTA and FHWA will identify the selected alternative in a combined final EIS and Record of Decision, or ROD, following the review of agency and public comments. A new bridge is needed to address existing issues within the study limits. For example, the existing bridge does not have enough travel lanes, is a severe bottleneck, requires frequent two-way operations, has narrow lanes and no shoulders, has aging bridge spans, and limits the height of ships navigating to the Port of Baltimore. To address these issues, the MDTA recommends a new, modern Bay Bridge. After evaluating the 7 alternatives, the MDTA recommends Alternative C. This alternative would replace the existing aging spans with 2 new 4-lane spans, adding the needed capacity and removing the bottleneck at the Bay Bridge, limit two-way operations, provide full shoulders for maintenance and emergencies, provide a 230-foot navigation clearance, enhancing port access, have the least environmental impact, and have the lowest cost.
Since launching the Tier 2 study in June 2022, the MDTA has held 3 public open houses, plus a virtual transit and bicycle and pedestrian listening meeting, and has attended more than 60 pop-up events to receive feedback from the public. We encourage you to continue to submit comments, join the mailing list, and spread the word about the study. Ways to submit comments are described at the end of this video. Please email us at info@baycrossingstudy.com if your community or organization has an event you'd like us to attend. To date, we have received more than 4,600 comments and survey responses. Common themes include support for replacing the existing bridge, need for congestion relief and traffic improvements, support for more lanes on the bridge and US 5301, concerns regarding impacts to community and natural resources, support for a shared use path on a new bridge, concerns about bridge cost, funding, and the construction schedule, the location of new bridge alternatives, and transit options. These comments have helped the MDTA develop the information outlined in the draft EIS, including the purpose and need, alternatives, environmental impacts, and the MDTA RPA. Let's take a look at the Tier 2 study timeline. The Tier 2 study began in 2022, and as mentioned, we have held 3 public open houses. In February 2026, the MDTA is holding public hearings for the draft EIS. The public hearings are a major study milestone and provide the public with a chance to comment on the alternatives, environmental impacts, and the MDTA RPA. Looking ahead, the combined final EIS and ROD is anticipated in November 2026, followed by design and construction, pending funding. The purpose of the Tier 2 study is to address existing and future transportation capacity needs and access across the Chesapeake Bay and at the Chesapeake Bay Bridge approaches along the US 5301 corridor. Study needs include adequate capacity and reliable travel times, mobility, roadway deficiencies, existing and future maintenance needs of the existing spans, and navigation. The MDTA is also considering 2 important objectives for this major infrastructure project: environmental responsibility and financial responsibility.
The MDTA RPA, Alternative C, would provide additional transportation capacity across the bay, have 4 lanes for travel in each direction, reducing the need for two-way operations and improving the reliability of crossing the bay. Increase the vertical navigational clearance to 230 feet to meet U.S. Coast Guard requirements. Have full shoulders, allowing for improved incident management, and eliminate the need for extensive maintenance and rehabilitation of the existing spans. Alternative C is the MDTA RPA because it would be the least costly alternative, ranging from $14.8 to $16.4 billion without the optional shared use path, and from $16.1 to $17.6 billion with the optional shared use path. Please note that these costs are based on a planning level cost estimate. It would remove the bottleneck at the Bay Bridge in both directions on non-summer weekdays and in the eastbound direction on summer weekend days. The MDTA RPA would have the least impact to environmental resources such as parks, historic properties, wetlands, non-tidal surface waters, and other natural resources, as well as private property. Please note that Alternative C is the MDTA's recommendation and that an alternative from this study has not been selected to advance to design or construction at this time. The MDTA and FHWA will identify a selected alternative in the combined final EIS and ROD following the review of agency and public comments on the draft EIS. As mentioned, the MDTA evaluated 7 alternatives, including a no-build alternative and 6 build alternatives. Each of the build alternatives would include the construction of 2 new Chesapeake Bay Bridge spans, replacing the existing spans. The alternatives vary with the number of lanes on a new Bay Bridge and the US 5301 approach roadway. The number of lanes would be the same in each direction, thus reducing the frequency of two-way operations. The new bridge locations also vary, with one new span located just north of the existing spans or just south of the existing spans, while the second new span would be located between the existing spans. The build alternatives would also include a financial commitment for transit improvements, along with an optional bicycle and pedestrian shared-use path. The new Bay Bridge would include 12-foot wide shoulders along the median and 14-foot wide outside shoulders. The approach roadways would include 12-foot wide travel lanes and 12-foot wide shoulders along the median and outside travel lanes. The new Bay Bridge would have a maximum grade of 3%, and the shipping channel would have a 230-foot vertical clearance. Alternative A, or the no-build alternative, does not meet the study's purpose and need, but serves as a baseline for comparison with the build alternatives. It would retain the current bridge and lane configuration, offers no capacity improvements, and would require extensive maintenance and rehabilitation, leading to increased congestion. The no-build alternative would cost approximately $3.8 billion in maintenance of the Bay Bridge through 2065, including major rehabilitation, such as painting, deck replacement, suspension cable rehabilitation, beam replacement, and electrical repairs. In contrast, alternatives B and C propose a 6-8-6 lane configuration with 8 lanes across a new bridge on 2 spans, 4 lanes for each direction of travel, and 6 lanes on both shores. Both alternatives would transition between 6 lanes to 8 lanes west of Oceanic Drive on the western shore and east of Cox Creek on the eastern shore. With Alternative B, one new span would be located just north of the existing spans, and one would be located between the existing spans. Alternative C would have one new span just south of the existing spans and one in between the existing spans. Both alternatives are 8.3 miles in length and would include modifications to the interchange ramps at Oceanic Drive, Maryland 8, and Thompson Creek Road, Duke Street, as well as widening of the Cox Creek Bridge. Alternatives D and E would widen US 5301 to 8 lanes throughout the corridor, with 8 lanes across a new 2-span bridge. The transitions from 6 to 8 lanes would occur at the Maryland 2 and Maryland 450 interchange on the western shore and at the US 5301 split on the eastern shore. With Alternative D, one new span would be located just north of the existing spans, and one would be located between the existing spans. Alternative E would have one new span just south of the existing spans and one between the existing spans. Alternatives F and G include 10 lanes across a new 2-span bridge with 8 lanes on US 5301. Similar to Alternatives D and E, the transitions from 6 to 8 lanes would occur at the Maryland 2 and Maryland 450 interchange on the western shore and at the US 5301 split on the eastern shore. The transitions from 8 to 10 lanes would occur west of Oceanic Drive on the western shore and east of Cox Creek on the eastern shore. With Alternative F, one new span would be located just north of the existing spans, and one would be located between the existing spans. Alternative G would have one new span just south of the existing spans, and one in between the existing spans. Alternatives D, E, F, and G are 20.4 miles long. Alternatives D, E, F, and G would require full reconstruction of the interchanges at Baydale Drive, Maryland 179, and Chester River Beach Road. At the Maryland 8 interchange, alternatives F and G would require full reconstruction, while alternatives D and E would only require modifications. Alternatives D, E, F, and G would all require reconstruction of bridges over Cox Creek, Piney Creek, and Kent Narrows.
A shared use path on a new bridge is an option with every build alternative. If included, the shared use path would be a two-way pedestrian and bicycle facility separated from the travel lanes and shoulders by a physical barrier. It would also include a fall protection system. Following publication of the combined final EIS and ROD, the MDTA will further evaluate whether to include the shared use path based on financial considerations. Construction of Alternative C, the MDTA RPA, would be phased to keep traffic flowing and ensure a safe transition to the new Bay Bridge spans. First, a new eastbound span would be built south of the existing bridges and open to traffic. The existing eastbound span would then be removed. Next, a new westbound span would be built between the new eastbound span and the existing westbound span. Finally, the existing westbound span would be removed. These renderings present examples of what a potential suspension or cable-stayed bridge could look like from the Sandy Point State Park beach. To meet navigational clearance requirements, the new bridge deck and towers would be taller than the existing spans. The new towers could be 400 to 570 feet high as compared to the existing 354-foot eastbound and 379-foot westbound towers. Please note that these concepts are for planning purposes only and are subject to change during final design. The traffic analysis evaluated factors such as queue lengths and diversion to local roads for 2045 design year. Under the no-build alternative, future forecasts showed that traffic volumes would be expected to increase 31% on non-summer weekdays and 25% on summer weekend days. This reflects annual traffic growth rates of 1.2 and 1%, respectively, which are typical for the region. On non-summer weekdays, the build alternative showed traffic of up to 3% greater for alternatives F and G compared to the no-build alternative. On summer weekend days, the build alternatives showed higher growth, where alternatives D, E, F, and G could reach an almost 14% increase in traffic compared to the no-build alternative. All build alternatives would limit the need for two-way operations, thus improving reliability for traffic crossing the bay. This figure shows the existing and 2045 no-build non-summer weekday traffic bottleneck areas and approximate maximum queue lengths. As shown in the top graphic, traveling westbound, the Bay Bridge would become a bottleneck if a new bridge is not built, leading to longer traffic queues. Baydale Drive would also become a bottleneck in the future. As shown in the bottom graphic, traveling eastbound, the existing bottleneck at the Bay Bridge would become more pronounced if a new bridge is not built. The Maryland 2 and Maryland 450 interchange would become a new bottleneck in the future. There would be no queuing at the US 50-301 split. Here, you can see the existing and 2045 no-build summer weekend traffic bottleneck areas and approximate maximum queue lengths. As shown in the top graphic, traveling westbound, the existing bottleneck at the Bay Bridge would become more pronounced if a new bridge is not built, leading to longer traffic queues that would extend beyond the US 50-301 split. Due to the bottleneck at the Bay Bridge, no queuing would be expected at Baydale Drive or at the Maryland 2 and Maryland 450 interchange. As shown in the bottom graphic, traveling eastbound, the existing bottleneck at the Bay Bridge would also become more pronounced if a new bridge is not built. The existing bottleneck at the Maryland 2 and Maryland 450 interchange would continue to be one in the future, with queuing extending beyond that interchange. Due to the bottleneck at the Bay Bridge metering traffic to the eastern shore, no queuing would be expected at the US 5301 split.
Non-summer weekday traffic bottleneck areas and approximate maximum queue lengths for the build alternatives in design year 2045 are illustrated below. As shown in the top graphic, traveling westbound, the bottleneck at the Bay Bridge under the 2045 no-build alternative would be removed by all build alternatives. Further west, Baydale Drive would continue to be a bottleneck under alternatives B and C, while the bottleneck would move to the Maryland 2 and Maryland 450 interchange under alternatives D, E, F, and G. As shown in the bottom graphic, traveling eastbound, the existing bottleneck at the Bay Bridge would be removed by all build alternatives, while the Maryland 2 and Maryland 450 interchange would be a bottleneck. There would be no queuing at the US 5301 split under all build alternatives. Shown below are the summer weekend traffic bottleneck areas and approximate maximum queue lengths for the build alternatives in design year 2045. As shown in the top graphic, traveling westbound, there would be a bottleneck west of the Bay Bridge with all build alternatives. A bottleneck would exist at Baydale Drive with alternative B and C, while the bottleneck would move to the Maryland 2 and Maryland 450 interchange under alternatives D, E, F, and G. These bottlenecks would lead to queuing extending beyond the Bay Bridge for all alternatives and beyond the US 5301 split for alternatives B, C, D, and E. There would be a bottleneck at the US 5301 split under all build alternatives. As shown in the bottom graphic, traveling eastbound, only alternatives D and E would lead to a bottleneck at the Bay Bridge, while the existing bottleneck at the Maryland 2 and Maryland 450 interchange would continue for all build alternatives. The US 5301 split under all build alternatives would be a new bottleneck, with queues extending to the Bay Bridge under alternatives D, E, F, and G. This slide shows the daily number of hours a traffic queue longer than 1 mile results for each alternative. For non-summer weekdays, none of the build alternatives would have a 1 mile or longer queue lasting an hour or more when approaching the Bay Bridge. Alternatives B and C would have queues traveling westbound beyond the bridge. For summer weekend days, the build alternatives would reduce queue durations approaching the bridge compared to the no-build alternative. There would be queuing beyond the bridge traveling eastbound and westbound.
We are holding the public hearings and sharing this information so that you are informed and can provide your comments on the study's draft environmental impact statement. But what exactly is an environmental impact statement? An environmental impact statement, or EIS, is required by the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, and supports decision-making by describing the environmental impacts of the proposed project alternatives. The Tier 2 study draft EIS includes the purpose and need, alternatives, existing environmental resources and potential impacts, mitigation measures, and public and agency input used in the development of alternatives and in decision-making. The draft EIS was published in the Federal Register on January 23, 2026, and is available for public review. Comments on the draft EIS will be accepted until March 9, 2026. All comments received on or before this date will be considered in the development of the combined final EIS and ROD, which is anticipated in November 2026. The draft EIS analyzed potential impacts from the build alternatives to various resources. These include natural, cultural, and socioeconomic resources, public parks and historic sites, air quality, potential noise impacts, and hazardous materials. This slide shows the estimated environmental impacts of the alternatives. The impacts highlighted in green represent the lowest impact per category by alternative, excluding the no-build alternative, which would not have any impacts related to build alternative activities. As you can see, Alternative C has the least impact to natural, community, and historic resources. Alternative C is also the least expensive, with an estimated cost of $14.8 to $16.4 billion. This cost does not include the optional shared use path, as that feature will be discussed on the next slide. The no-build alternative would cost about $3.8 billion in maintenance through 2065, including major rehabilitation. As mentioned earlier, please note that these costs are based on a planning level cost estimate. Since the shared use path is being advanced independently as an option to the build alternatives, its potential impacts are quantified separately from the build alternative impacts. As you can see, the impacts for the optional shared use path are generally consistent for all build alternatives. The shared use path cost is also generally the same for all build alternatives, with the cost ranging from $1.2 to $1.3 billion. These costs are also based on a planning level cost estimate. Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act requires projects receiving federal funding or federal approvals to consider impacts on historic properties. The MDTA initiated consultation with the Maryland Historical Trust, the state historic preservation officer, federally recognized tribes, local governments, and other interested stakeholders. Of the 18 historic properties identified in the study area, 2 properties, the Skidmore Historic District and the existing Chesapeake Bay Bridge, would be adversely affected by Alternative C, the MDTA RPA. To address these adverse effects, the MDTA is preparing a programmatic agreement that will outline mitigation strategies, protocols for additional archaeological surveys, and procedures for continued consultation during final design.
Section 4F of the U.S. Department of Transportation Act of 1966 is a federal law that provides protections to parks, recreation areas, wildlife refuges, and historic sites. Alternative C would have the least impact to parks and historic sites. Alternative C would impact Sandy Point State Park, Holly Beach Farm, Terrapin Nature Park, Broadneck Peninsula Trail, Kent Island Water Trails, Stevenson Middle School, Isinger Property, Skidmore Historic District, and the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. Generally, impacts to park properties would occur within vegetated areas along the edge of the properties. The impacts are not expected to adversely affect park activities. Access to trails, including water trails and the Mesic Pond entrance, could be temporarily restricted or detoured during construction. The MDTA and FHWA are seeking public comment on the impacts to these properties. The Chesapeake Bay, rivers, streams, and wetlands are protected under the Federal Clean Water Act and various Maryland laws and regulations. Impacts to waterways and wetlands from the build alternatives would be associated with roadway grading, pavement, new structures, including bridge piers and in-water dredging. Alternative C would have the least impact to these resources. The build alternatives could impact species protected by the Federal Endangered Species Act, the Magnuson-Stevens Act, and the Marine Mammal Protection Act. Potential impacts could include interaction with construction equipment, tree clearing, and in-water construction activities, such as dredging and pile driving. These activities have the potential to remove or degrade habitat, cause physical injury, or alter species behavior. The MDTA and FHWA prepared biological assessments to evaluate these potential impacts. Based on the preliminary assessment, Alternative C is not likely to adversely affect listed or proposed bat species and is likely to adversely affect listed sturgeon and sea turtle species. The MDTA and FHWA are consulting with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Fisheries and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to identify and mitigate potential adverse impacts to these species.
Right-of-way acquisition would be required for all of the build alternatives. Potential property impacts would be further minimized during design prior to any acquisition. All impacted property owners would be fairly compensated in compliance with the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act. The economic analysis showed that construction of the MDTA RPA could generate up to $23 billion in economic activity, support up to 75,600 jobs, create up to $6 billion in labor income, and increase regional GDP by up to $12.9 billion. A proposed 230-foot-high bridge, which matches the proposed new clearance of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, would accommodate larger ships, increasing cargo capacity, revenue, port activity, jobs, and business growth, helping the Port of Baltimore and the state of Maryland increase its current and future economic activities. The MDTA is committed to incorporating Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 practices during the NEPA planning process from scoping through the combined final EIS and ROD for the Tier 2 study. For more information on Title VI and to take the Title VI survey, visit the study website at baycrossingstudy.com.
Several other projects are underway or completed within or near the Bay Crossing study area, including tolling upgrades, deck replacements, and feasibility studies by the State Highway Administration and the MDTA. After the draft EIS comment period, the MDTA and FHWA will review all comments received and prepare a combined final EIS and record of decision in November 2026, which will present the selected alternative. Final design procurement activities could begin as early as the fall of 2026, with design potentially starting in the spring of 2028 and construction potentially starting in the summer of 2032. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video and for your interest in the Bay Crossing Tier 2 NEPA study. We welcome you to submit your comments about the information presented in the draft EIS by Friday, March 9th, 2026. There are several ways to comment. You can provide public testimony at a hearing, fill out a comment card at a hearing or at baycrossingstudy.com, send an email to info@baycrossingstudy.com, leave a message at 667-203-5408, or send a letter to Bay Crossing Study, 2310 Broning Highway, Baltimore, Maryland, 21224. To sign up for project notifications and view the displays presented at this public hearing, please visit baycrossingstudy.com.
Okay. Thank you for watching the video. As a reminder, the boards shown in the video are displayed here tonight and available on the project website for viewing. Before starting the live testimony portion, we will take a moment to review Title VI and share the ways you can provide comments on the draft EIS and the MDTA RPA. The MDTA is committed to incorporating Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back. Sorry. On behalf of the MDTA Title VI officer, I will explain the significance of Title VI and how it relates to the transportation project planning process. The MDTA is committed to incorporating Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 practices during the NEPA planning process, from scoping through the combined final EIS and record of decision for the Tier 2 study. Meaningful participation from individuals and groups historically excluded, overburdened, and underserved is encouraged. The MDTA is ensuring the needs and concerns of individuals and communities are incorporated into the Tier 2 study. To establish a fair and equitable transportation decision. Title VI provides that no person on the grounds of race, color, national origin, sex, English proficiency, or disabilities be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity. For more information on Title VI and to take the Title VI survey, visit the study website at baycrossingstudy.com.
There are multiple ways to comment on the draft EIS and the MDTA RPA. You can provide private one-on-one or public oral testimony during this public hearing. You can also complete a comment form online or at one of the in-person hearings, or send an email to info@baycrossingstudy.com. Leave a message at 667-203-5408, or send a written letter to Bay Crossing Study, 2310 Browning Highway, Baltimore, Maryland, 21224. Details on ways to comment can be found on the project website, baycrossingstudy.com, by visiting the Submit Comments page under the Public Engagement tab. Comments must be received no later than 11:59 p.m. on March 9th, 2026. If you have not done so already, please visit baycrossingstudy.com to sign up for project notifications and view the displays presented at this public hearing. I'll now pass it back to Andrew, who will review the hearing procedures. Thank you.
Okay, before I do that, I just want to recognize a couple elected officials that either are here or were here tonight. Jim Moran and Chris Corci-Arnio, as well as Patrick McLaughlin. And from the Bay Bridge Reconstruction Advisory Group, the chair, Tracy Schultz. So again, the purpose of this public hearing is to allow interested parties to provide public comments on the draft EIS and the MDTA's RPA. My role as the hearing officer is to run a professional and orderly public hearing. I understand how important the issues are related to the draft EIS and the MDTA RPA, and I take my role as hearing officer seriously. I'm committed to providing members of the public an opportunity to provide comments in an organized, fair, professional, and orderly manner. Offensive or profane language will not be allowed. I also want to let everyone know that we will not be answering questions or responding to any comments made during the hearing. All comments received, whether at the hearing through oral testimony or through other methods such as the comment form, an email or phone or mail, will be considered. The MDTA will respond to comments in the combined final EIS and the record of decision anticipated in November 2026. We are interested in hearing comments from all participants. Please remember that the hearing is being recorded. Speak directly and clearly into the microphone, and provide your full name, address, and any organization you may be representing. To ensure that everyone is heard, there will be a 3-minute time limit for public testimony and a 5-minute time limit for any elected officials. The time will start after you introduce yourself. When providing testimony, a single tone will sound when there are 30 seconds remaining, and a double tone will sound when there are 10 seconds remaining. And at this point, you should wrap up your testimony. I will then remind you at the end of your time. As the hearing officer, if you are unable to conclude your comments at the end of your time period, I will ask you to wrap up your testimony. As a courtesy, elected officials will be given priority to speak first. Elected officials will then be followed by the attendees who pre-registered to speak, and then attendees who registered this evening. Okay, so we're going to get to the testimony portion of the hearing. Again, the microphone is right up here. There will be a clock that will be up on the screen that you can refer to help guide your testimony. We have several people who have signed up, and I'm going to call the first name, and also I'm going to call a few names just so you can be prepared. Our first speaker will be DeQuinn Reno, then Taja Cropper, then Doug Silber. So take your time. So again, as you approach the microphone, if you could state your name, spell your name, provide your address, and any organization that you may be representing.
Thank you. My name is Di Quinreno. First name is spelled D-I. Last name is Q-U-Y-N-N-R-E-N-O. I live on Main Street in Queenstown, Maryland. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I have lived on the Eastern Shore since 2001 and was a daily commuter over the Bay Bridge for 23 years. When I retired in May 24, I was thrilled not to have that commute over the Bay Bridge, but I will say I did have a little love affair with it for 23 years because it brought me home every night. So I'm very grateful for the Bay Bridge, and I'm grateful to be here. I am amused by the word queue because I never texted anyone saying, hey, I'm in a queue by the bridge. I'll be home late. It usually was traffic jam. So I'm humored by you phrasing it that way. I am here to advocate for the shared use path. As a biker on the Eastern Shore, I am part of the Chesapeake Cycling Club. Call us, whoever else is here, if anyone else is here. And it would be an excellent resource. We have the trail infrastructure on both sides of the bridge already. The other shore has the new paths that were just built. We have the Cross Island Trail. So all the infrastructure is there to have a crossing connecting to those pathways already. So how great would that be for people that want to commute to either side or to do recreational purposes? So I really advocate for that. I think it's worth it to do it. I know it's part of my tax dollars and I'm happy to pay that. So as a side note, I want to mention a revenue producing item. So I would like you all to consider putting in red X cameras on the bridge, because every one of us sitting in this room has sat on the green X and seen inconsiderate drivers zipping up the red X side. So how great would it be for them to get big fat tickets? So there is a way to raise revenue for that shared use path. Yes, thank you for clapping. So I've brought this up to the Queen Anne's County Commissioners, and I also have called the governor's office several times, sitting in the queue, watching people zip past me. So there is already technology for red light cameras and for speed cameras, so why not put in red X cameras? That would just make me super happy. Not as happy as a shared use path, but equally as happy, maybe. So thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Taja Cropper, and again, after that will be Doug Silber.
I'm 411. Thank you.
Again, if you could state your name, spell your name, provide your address and any organization if you're
Like
representing.
my full address or just city and state?
Say again?
Full address or just city and state? Okay.
If you have your address, that would be best. But first, your name and spell your name.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Taja Cropper. That is Tahja. Last name Cropper. I'm a resident of Princess Anne, Maryland. That is 12410 Independence Court as an Independence Day, 21853. I am an employee of the state of Maryland. I am a native and resident of the Lower Eastern Shore. I have been employed with the state of Maryland for years with education and background in education and communications. And so I wanted to
get a little closer to the microphone. There you go.
I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. And so I wanted to mention about the bottlenecking that you mentioned. Someone mentioned in the hall about starting in 2032 and then being completed by 2045. And if the 4 lanes is going to alleviate bottlenecking, I'm all for that. I also advocate for the bike path, as transportation is a real barrier for many people on the Eastern Shore, especially communities of color. And so my issue is the period prior to completing the construction or beginning the construction. There is something that must be done about the bottlenecking currently. So I've only seen one time a state trooper pull somebody over for running up to the front, almost causing an incident. The 2-mile warning is not needed. Drivers don't need a 2-mile warning. The state transportation authority and the State Highway Administration have to do something about actively enforcing lane management and closures presently. Like allowing all that running up to the front, there's not extra space in the front. You need to close the lane immediately, put the barrels down, maybe 500 feet, whatever you feel is best. But a 2-mile warning is not needed. Like, you need to get over now in the back so that traffic can keep moving in the front and we all can get home at a present hour. I work in Annapolis, use public transportation. There is a transportation hub at the Annapolis Mall. for Annapolis public transportation, and going from the mall and getting to the bridge multiple times a week, it's not a 3-day distance. It shouldn't take me an hour to get from the mall to get onto the bridge. That's not crossing the bridge. So, like, there's something that the State Highway Administration has to do now with lane management and lane closures to help with the bottlenecking. Obviously, you know, we need more lanes, but at present, there is a responsibility and something that has to be done at present to relieve that. Because we don't need a 2-mile warning. All this running up to the front, cameras, there's ways to ticket. You know, I'm sure the state needs revenue. They ticket for everything else. So I would really appreciate if that could be taken into consideration, because it should not take you, 3 days from now to get home. People live on the Eastern Shore and they work in the capital city, they work in metropolitan areas. Taking that time away from your family is a monetary cost and a life cost. And we really can't afford both. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next up will be Doug Silber. After Doug will be Bill Brenner. Okay. So again, state your name, spell your name, provide your address, and if you are representing an organization.
Doug Silber, Prospect Bay, Graysonville, 21638. I signed in.
And if you could just spell your name for the court reporter.
Doug Silber, Silber. I'm not speaking for anybody other than a few folks and myself. I live on the Eastern Shore. I used to live in Severna Park. I used to be the chief NEPA attorney for the state of Maryland back 30 years ago. I handled the Woodrow Wilson Bridge project. And we found that studying a short distance on either side of a major connector was insufficient, that you had to evaluate impacts much further. That NEPA study was revised to go all the way to Springfield, Virginia, and College Park for that reason. The Baltimore Beltway is in chunks and it always backs up. You recognized that you're going to put 4 lanes in, if that's the plan, but you're going to go eastbound, you're going to go from 4 lanes to 3 lanes. Okay, that's fine. But then you're going to go to 2 lanes at the split. And you already know there's a bottleneck there. All the traffic is created from merges and lane drops. When you take 4 lanes and you go to 3 and then you go to 2, you're going to just have a massive backup. There's been a study. I know it's a state highway study, not a transportation authority study, but there's already been a study completed that deals with the 301 split all the way to 404. Somebody ought to tell the governor or the legislature, let's get that funded and let's get that moving. So when the bridge is done in 38 and whatever, that 3-lane highway from the split to 404 is already done. Otherwise, you're just going to have a functionally obsolete backup bridge that you've just spent a lot of money on. So that's one thing. The second thing, the longer it takes to build the bridge, the costs are going to go up for labor. The costs are going to go up for material. The longer this huge economic impact benefit to the state is going to be delayed. So any delay should be avoided. Any way to save time will save money. And also, the sooner you replace the bridge, the sooner you can avoid spending money to patch the 2 bridges that you have right now. One major time savings might be to do the procurement for the design firms earlier. They're simply based on qualifications, not price. We might not know exactly what bridge they're going to design, but they're going to design a bridge. Do the selection now, have it in the can, have them ready to go. That could take a year and a half, but do it in a parallel to your NEPA study. Then as soon as you have your selection determined, they're ready to go with a design, and you save a lot of time there. And then the last thing is what these 2 ladies said. I agree entirely. Consider raising the height of the Jersey walls on the travel lanes higher so people who are afraid of height don't slow down. That might also save some time. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Bill Brenner. After Bill will be Eric Levasseur. Hopefully I said that right. As Bill's coming up, if anyone else has been thinking about, do I want to make comments? Do I not want to make comments? If you do, all you need to do is go out and let the person at the sign-in table know. They'll bring me a card with your name on it, and I'll get you in the queue to speak next, okay? Bill, you're up.
Bill Brenner, BRENNER, 219 Johnny Lane, Stevensville. I have problems with the bike path. One problem I have is the cost. We're looking at $2 billion additional money to put the bike path across the bridge. I don't think that's cost effective of our tax dollars. And also, even of a bigger concern of mine is safety. As people who cross the bridge regularly may understand as well, people driving over the bridge tend to look at boats, whatever's out there on the water, and you get people hitting their brakes, you get people swerving in lanes. Adding pedestrians and bikes to the path, unless they're completely walled off to where you can't see them, is only going to add to that, I believe. I think it's going to be a safety concern and probably create more accidents in the long run. And that's all I'll say on that. The other point is I didn't see any cost up there for dredging. If we're going to add larger ships coming through the bay, I believe you're going to have to dredge the bay further. Has that been considered at all?
Again, we won't be answering questions right now. All questions and comments will be responded to in the final environmental impact statement before the record of decision.
Okay, so I would like to see some costs.
And you could also, if you could hold the clock for 1 second, Tim. You could also go out into the open house portion and have conversations with some of our staff out there, okay?
Okay, all right.
Keep going, Tim.
That's it, thank you.
That was it, okay. Thank you. Next up will be Eric Lavashore. And then Renee Dupuis.
Are you able to pull the Kent Island up on the screen so I can show you our community and how drastically it's going to affect our community?
I'm not sure
so you guys are able to understand exactly what we're talking
about. Verbally go through it. And again, you can also go out and talk to our staff out there and make sure that they're seeing the visual. But if you could state, go ahead.
Eric Lavasser, ERIC, last name Levasseur. I am the community president of the Harborview community located on Kent Island. I did not expect to speak today, but after being out there, I noticed that there are some issues. Harborview community is the only strictly residential community that borders US Route 50. Our top road, Sherman Drive, our northernmost road, is the barrier between the state property and the county property. Those residents up there look at US Route 50 every single day. They see the traffic. They understand what's going on. Speaking out there today, we'd like to know what is the impact going to be on a residential community during this construction for two reasons. One, you have a tapering of the lanes at Cox Creek, or the lanes will go right through Cox Creek. If we have a tapering of the lanes at Cox Creek, not much property from Harborview is going to be taken. To me, I would prefer the lanes to go all the way to the split because it gets the traffic flowing and you're not going to have a backup. A backup causes delays for EMS coming into our community. It also has our residents looking at either a barrier or they're looking at traffic just sitting there because when we all know going over the Bay Bridge, you have to go from 3 lanes to 2 lanes. There's always a backup no matter what. That's just the nature of the beast. The community health during construction. What is the impact going to be on the Harborview community? We have over 450 homes, roughly 2,000 people living right there in Route 50. What is the impact of the health going to be on our residents with all the debris, all the toxins, all the construction equipment? Also, Cox Creek. We have families that fish in Cox Creek to put food on their table. What is the water impact going to be? What is going to happen to the Cox Creek, the health and safety of Cox Creek? I'd also like to know, as a whole, the let's see here, the community impact, and also the impact on the residents that live there. You talked about properties and maybe purchasing their properties right away and things like this. Depending on where it is, what is the value going to be? Is it going to be the value at the time of construction where the value is going to go down because everybody knows we're going to put a big wall in here? Or is it going to be now when their property value is higher? Who determines when the property value is going to be for those residents? And how are they going to get the best bang for their buck when you, the state, is coming in and saying, no, you have to move. You're forcing your way. Where we live on Kent Island, whether it's a Dunkin' Donuts development they want to put in or any other development, we're pushed around because we don't have the resources to fight government. We're asking for your help to make sure that this job is done correctly. It's the least impact on the residents of Harborview community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Renee Dupuis. And after Renee will be Derek Williams. Okay.
That good?
Yep. If you could state your name, spell
Sure.
your name, provide your address, and if you're representing an organization.
Sure. It's Rennie Dupuis, RENEDUPUIS, Mooring Circle, Stevensville. First of all, I want to say I'm new to the area. I only lived here 5 years, but I'm certainly in favor of a new bridge. For obvious safety reasons, these existing bridges are old and decrepit and certainly need to be replaced and should have been replaced a long time ago. I just hope that the issue with the amount of volume, traffic volume on the bridges is taken into consideration. I come from an area where they just built the bridge across the Hudson River, and they went to 6 lanes in each direction to accommodate the current traffic volume and for future traffic volume. And I hope that they consider the future traffic volume on these new bridges and the impact that it's going to have on Kent Island as far as traffic is concerned, all the way down to the split. One of my concerns currently, and hope it is not an issue when the construction is that construction starts or when it's finished, is that frequently tractor trailers park on Route 50 while the drivers cross the over to Chick-fil-A and Burger King and McDonald's and Jersey Mike's to get something to eat, and these trucks are parked illegally just off the highway, and it's only a matter of time before someone runs into the back of the one, as it happened in Connecticut many years ago and killed the driver and I think a child in the car. So there'd be a nice thing if the highway department take into consideration some type of truck facility for the truck drivers to get off the road, to get food, to get fuel, and to accommodate the increased volume of just truck traffic. And I'm sure that'll increase with the new bridges. So that needs to be taken into consideration. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next up will be Derek Williams, and then it will be Commissioner Jim Moran.
Hello, Derek Williams, DERRICKWILLIAMS. I live over in Chester, Harborview too, shout out. So I saw a line that I just wanted to address that's mentioned financial commitments for transit related improvements, and I would like a clarification on whatever that would mean in the future. And then I noticed that it seems that no matter what the plan is, westbound summer weekend traffic is going to be abysmal. That is a huge issue, quite honestly, because we can't continue to exist like this. It's not tenable. And it seems that there's not really going to be an answer even with the proposed ones. One of the reasons seems to be the bottleneck at Baydale Drive, which I would like to iterate. One of our friends had said something about focusing on the bottleneck further downstream going towards Easton. I would suggest something similar in nature for that bottleneck as well to be observed. And then my final thought I believe I have is that it looks like there is going to be construction on the highway with Plan C past Cox Creek. As someone who lives in Chester, it is extremely hard to get over to the trail and everything like that, so I'm extremely conscious of people who are going to be pedestrians and bicyclists. If there's going to be a shared use path for the bridge, those people would then have to somehow get over Cox Creek. Whether that's at the overpass that already exists or a new one that would have to be constructed at the same time as this expansion. I believe those are all my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next up will be Commissioner Jim Moran, and then Ralph Hamilton, and then Jay Falstad. And again, this hearing will continue till 8 o'clock tonight. So again, if anyone is out here that would like to make comments, just go out to the sign-in table and let them know, and we will get you up here to speak. So again, Commissioner Moran.
Commissioner Jim Moran, 329 Y Harbor Drive, Queenstown, Maryland, Moran. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Hold on, Commissioner. Fine. Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Already. It is great to see the Tier 2 NEPA process get to this point of selecting a preferred alternative with the hope of quickly moving forward to design and construction. It's going to be over 20 years. And before I forget, the red X's, we're working on it. It's the bane of my existence, so we're working on it. For many years, the top transportation priority for Queen Anne's County has been addressing the congestion at the Bay Bridge and in the Bay Bridge corridor. The replacement bridges studied in the NEPA process will help remove the congestion and delays we experience every day and improve summer weekend traffic. The replacement bridges are needed now, and we ask that the MDTA move quickly to complete the NEPA process and begin design and construction on 2 new replacement bridges as quickly as possible, even though we know that it'll be one bridge at a time and possibly a good 10 years between the 2 of them. The start of the NEPA process was announced on August 30th, 2016. I was there on that grassy knoll where then Governor Hogan took on this monumental task of getting these bridges replaced. Let's see, for most of 10 years, MDTA has studied corridors to locate a new crossing and construction alternative to relieve congestion. Throughout the process, the NEPA study considered a 20-mile long corridor, Corridor 7, that went from the Severn River to Queenstown. The Tier 2 NEPA studied multiple options for bridge and highway improvements throughout that 20-mile long corridor. And that is going to be a problem for Queen Anne's County and Anne Arundel County by shrinking this down. So the selected preferred alternative is focused on only widening 8.5 miles of the 20-mile corridor, while the preferred alternative addresses congestion at the Bay Bridge by going from 5 lanes to 8 lanes crossing the bay. It does not address the long-term needed improvements in the corridor to manage traffic moving through Queen Anne's County. After the new bridges open in the 30s and 40s, they are anticipated to last for the next 100 years. Therefore, we ought to consider at least some of the needed highway improvements over the life of the bridge as part of the project. If widening the highway is not addressed as part of this project, then it will need to be addressed by State Highway Administration shortly after the first bridge opens. The exhibits show traffic conditions projected for 2045 with just the beginning of the life of the new bridges. We know based on the historical trends that traffic will continue.
And ignore that beep. You have plenty of time left.
Traffic will continue past 2045. We need to consider traffic conditions in 2065 and 2085, even though I won't be here. It is highly likely that 8 lanes from Queenstown to Kent Island will be needed to address the future traffic volumes. We believe the planning for additional highway improvements in the corridor is needed as part of this project. Other alternatives propose widening US 5301 to 8 lanes, which appear to be better addressed for the long-term needs of the corridor. If alternatives D, E, F, and G are not being advanced, can additional highway widening and improvements be added to alternative C? Almost 10 years has been spent on the NEPA process. Everyone has been very patient throughout this process, year after year, as we endure the ongoing congestion at the bridge. We need a new bridge now. We need to move quickly to construction so Queen Anne's County residents can get some relief. Queen Anne's County strongly supports the replacement of the 2 existing bridges, with new bridges totaling at least 8 lanes. Queen Anne's County strongly supports MDTA's quickly moving to design and construction of the bridges. Queen Anne's County believes additional highway improvements will be needed to support the new bridges and should be considered as part of this project. I want to thank you for your consideration, and I want to add one more point that we are working right now in the process of a pedestrian overpass over Route 50 to tie into Terrapin Park and to Pier 1 Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, next up will be Ralph Hamilton, and then Jay Falstad, and then Susan Simmons. Again, as you come up, if you could state your name, spell your name, provide your address, and any organization that you may be representing.
Name's Ralph Hamilton, spelled like the $10 bill. I'm from Stevensville, Maryland. I'm going to reiterate some things that have already been said. And the first thing I'm going to say is I'm appalled at the coordination between MDOT and MDTA. about traffic infrastructure, it reeks of bureaucratic shirking of responsibility to consider the local community. I mean, you're going to take 4 to 3 to 2-lane merges starting at Cox Creek to the 5301 split. That's not going to work. We don't merge in Maryland. It's a game of screw your buddy, and that's what it's always been. And it gets worse on this island. That's one thing. Red X lane violations, it infuriates everybody that's following the rules. We do have the ability to ticket people that run red lights. We have the Easy Pass that can identify them, send a ticket to them. If they don't like it, they can go to court and waste their time in court going against it. Last thing is, if we're going to have these 4 lanes to 3 to 2, whatever is going to happen, we don't have a southern cross over Cox Neck Road right now. It's between Thompson Creek and Sherman Drive. It would alleviate us having to go over the overpass, go through Castle Marina, and come back over Route 8 Bridge for those of us that live on the south side of the island. It's a pain in the neck. And if you want to go to Safeway or any of the other things in Chester, forget about it. Sunday, we sit home. We don't even go to a movie. We don't do anything because we know we're going to get in the traffic. It's going to be the same thing by the time the bottlenecks take place. Maybe not so much coming back from Ocean City because it's going to open up. But then when it gets over to Arnold and Cape St. Clair, it's going to bottleneck back up over the bridge. And I've been told, well, the people can go up Route 2. We don't go up Route 2 to Baltimore. We don't do it. We go up 97. You got to go through Annapolis. So that's going to happen. They don't take into consideration of that. That's about all I have to say. I just want to reiterate, it's the same stuff that everybody's talking about, and the coordination is horrible at this point. I've been shirked back and forth. That's not our problem. That's what they have to deal with. I'll tell you, the same people that brought us 13 lanes of tolls from 2 lanes to 13 toll booths back to 2 lanes gave us 2-hour delays getting out of Annapolis. If this isn't planned for, we're going to have the same problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up is Jay Falstad, and then again will be Susan Simmons.
Good evening, Jay Falstead, Queen Anne's Conservation Association, the oldest conservation association on the Eastern Shore. I live in Millington, Maryland. My last name is spelled Falstad. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I have just a couple of things that I want to add. I've looked at a lot of infrastructure projects just through research and what's happened in other jurisdictions. I have not been able to find a single major infrastructure project in the entire United States of this scale that hasn't brought with it a massive amount of development in its wake. To use this as an example, if you look at Route 1 in Delaware, when that highway was constructed, you now have a sea of subdivisions all the way down to Rehoboth Beach. It would be irresponsible to think that that's not going to happen here. And so I would ask MTA to really look beyond just the Route 50 corridor and look northward onto 301. And if we're going to do this project, it's going to bring with it a lot of traffic and a lot more development, which will impact farmland. This is some of the best farmland on the entire Atlantic coast, some of the most productive. In Queen Anne's County alone, we're the largest grain-producing county in the state of Maryland. We should not throw that out without addressing the traffic that will come with it. So that was item number 1. If we're going to do this, I hope there's a fair amount of land preservation money to go with it so that we can help protect and preserve those farms. On the environmental front, you mentioned the Marine Mammals Act. I saw sea turtles and I saw bats. I did not see anything about dolphins or porpoises. Something that's happening now that did not happen in the 50s and 70s when the first 2 spans were built were the migrations of dolphins up the bay. Right now, some dolphins have gone all the way up to the Bohemia River, the Chester River, all the way up to the north end of the bay. If we're going to truly protect those endangered species, then we have to have some type of restriction on when this bridge is being built. Finally, as a resident of Queen Anne's County, ladies and gentlemen, I just have to say, it's not as though this bridge is just going to be thrown up in a couple of years. We're talking potentially 20 years of disruption. And so I would just say be careful what you ask for, because anybody who lives on Kent Island right now, you're talking about potential backups that dwarf anything that we're looking at right now. And so I would just be Queen Anne's Conservation Association recommends the no-build option. It's cheaper. We think there are some other things that could be done to alleviate some of the traffic backups. And for right now, we would urge the no-build option. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So next up is Susan Simmons. I was handed a note that apparently some people signed up to speak online. There's no online testimony right now. So if you did sign up to speak online, you need to just go out to the table to sign up in person, and then I'll bring you up to speak. So again, there will not be any virtual or online testimony. If that was your intention, you need to go to the table and we'll bring you in to speak in here.
Yeah, and I think it was that we had signed up online and didn't know that we needed to check in.
Okay, so let me make that clarification. So if you pre-registered to speak, you still needed to sign in at the table outside. So if you're in here kind of wondering or waiting why we didn't call you, and I apologize if there was a miscommunication, just go out and let them know you're here so that they can bring me in a card and I can call you up to speak. Go ahead. If you could state your name, spell your name, and provide your address.
Sure. Sue Simmons, SUESIMMONS. I live in Greensboro, Maryland on Moot Point Farm. Yep, it's a real place. And I am, and I really do appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this process. I was in Annapolis today, and I witnessed the Monk traffic jam, but bring that energy forward. So here we are. I serve as the chair of the Maryland Eastern Shore Trails Network, a group of individuals who are trail enthusiasts as well as advocates and educators. Relatively new group, but really very interested and involved in increasing the trail availability. And of course, the shared use trail proposal, I think words matter. And I think shifting from optional to integral would be really important for us to consider if we are going to proceed with the new bridge construction. And I just wanted to reinforce that we are, several hundred strong in terms of folks that have pledged to support that. I know that we have brothers and sisters over in Anne Arundel County, and of course points west, and certainly what Ms. Reno had indicated earlier in terms of the integration and the infrastructure is powerful and a potential. I think one of the things I asked one of the engineers, what are some of the reservations that you have about something like this? And of course, from her perspective, and it's a valid one, and I think one of our other speakers today address that, safety. What happens if people get there and, they're 2 miles in and they need to go to the bathroom, or there's a heart attack issue? And I think that I have a great deal of confidence. What an interesting problem to address. I have a lot of confidence in the people that are trail enthusiasts, that are looking at alternative transportation forms. I think that we will come up with some terrific solutions for that, and in partnership with the state and other parties. So I think the public can sometimes be knuckleheads, but I also think that they have great capacity for creative problem solving. And MSE, the Maryland Trails Network, is very interested in being a part of that. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so right now I have not been given any additional information that anyone else wants to provide testimony. So again, if there's anyone in here right now that has thought about it and decided, yep, this is the moment I want to provide testimony, let me know. You can raise your hand right now and let me know. Okay, is there anyone else in here who's raised? I only see one. So sir, why don't you come up? Yep, I'm just going to have you come up. So I need you to state your name, spell your name, provide your address, and any organization that you may be representing.
Okay, my name is James Nelson. That's JamesNelson. I live in Arnold, 218 St. Anton's Way, 21012. No organization. Actually, probably Bike AAA. I belong to that. Bike Anne Arundel County. I have lived in Arnold for like a year and a half now. It's been great, except the access to recreation is lacking. If you're a biker and you like biking, then you know that winter is probably like the worst time of year to bike. And if you look at the Baltimore Annapolis Trail right now, it is just horrible. We don't clear it at all. We just kind of wait for the ice to go away, which I like to bike commute as well. I moved here from Boston. They do a great job of clearing things. We do not down here. That's kind of like a different story. A couple comments. Has the traffic alleviation from the future ferry been modeled with respect to this study? Where do the people go? Where do the people go when they cross the bridge? And would that ferry do anything to alleviate the traffic in the future? Highly recommend looking into that. And I highly support a shared use bike path. A couple points. Biking is a 100% aid. You have to build it so they will come activity. Many people are scared to bike next to cars or on roads that do not provide for protection. I am scared of it, but I do it anyways, for better or for worse. I think that biking is an extremely underrated and underappreciated form of commuting. Maryland does a lot, but we still need to do more to make bike commuting more feasible. And connecting paths is the way to do it. Again, because of the bike safety, when you leave a path, what happens when you get off the Baltimore Annapolis Trail, and then you have to go and bike through the Naval Academy? Like, you're still on a road with a bunch of cars. No one wants to do that. I don't want to do it. I do it anyways because I like to bike. Again, yeah, when we build the shared use path, we must make sure to think about the pedestrian safety. I biked on a lot of shared use paths with shared use paths, you have many forms of use. You have walkers, bikers, strollers. You have little kids running around, running right into you while you're biking. Even if you're 10 miles an hour, you still have that. When we build a shared use path, we have to consider that there's going to be a commuter portion of this path. There's going to be bikers who want to just get to work if they're using this path. There's probably going to be pedestrians. There's probably going to be moms walking their kids and runners and whatever. We need to consider that there should be a portion of this path that is for commuting, that is for 15 miles an hour plus biking, for e-bike biking. If you're on this bike path, you're not going to be going 10 miles an hour. You're going to be trying to zoom. You're not going to be trying to sit on it for 6 miles doing 10 miles an hour. You want to get to the other side. I yield my time.
Okay. Thank you. So again, at this point, everyone who has signed up has spoken. Is there anyone else who would like to provide a comment? Okay, come on down, sir. Just as a reminder that, again, this hearing, we will be here till 8 o'clock. So if you have time to go out and review the boards, you can come back and provide testimony anytime before 8 o'clock. Sir, state your name, spell your name, your address.
Nick Deotis, Deoudes. I live on Bennett Point Road in Queenstown.
Okay, just get a little closer to the mic. There you go.
Is it good enough?
Yep.
Okay. Moved over here in 1993 and been traveling the bridge up until about 2 years ago when I semi-retired. I think it would be insane to have a bike path and a walking pedestrian path on the bridge. I want to say that if you want to, well, what you should do is there's a documentary on the internet titled The Bridge, and it's about the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And just watch that, and you can get an idea of where I'm coming from. Golden Gate Bridge has 30 jumpers a year that they've documented. They have others that are not caught on the cameras and not seen. So, we have a problem now with nobody publicizes. We have people jumping off the bridge now, and you're going to put a bike path there and a pedestrian path, and why don't you just put a sign up jumping? And the other thing too is it's almost 5 miles, the bridge. And everybody wants to walk it. Everybody wants to ride the bike up it. It's 260 feet high. You're climbing, and a lot of people who think they're in physical condition to do all that, they're not going to make it, and you're going to have traffic jams and whatnot to try to access them and get them off of there. So watch that documentary. It says it all. The Bridge, and it's you can find it online, and that's all I have to say. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up, sir. Again, if you could state your name, spell your name, and provide your address.
Scott Woolsey, SCOTT, WOOLSEY, 124 miles away, Centerville, Maryland, 21617. A couple of comments I saw on the video that if the alternate, the supplemental use path was added, that there would be fall protection. I did not see that as an option for regular bridge. And as the gentleman mentioned before, there have been suicide attempts on the Bay Bridge. Why hasn't there been fall protection as part of the study for option C? Also, the comment about the lanes 3 to 2, why haven't we included the full 20-mile corridor for expansion and just the part of the bridge? And then lastly, I think the kind of concern that I have as a community that goes to DC is there's no alternatives, right? I know earlier on the study, they looked at different locations of the bridge. I don't know why those different locations have been excluded. I would say not only does the current Bay Bridge need to be expanded, but we need to look at other crossings of the bay, and as someone else mentioned, a ferry to give commuters other alternatives to get from the Eastern Shore to Western Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands that are raised right now. So what we're going to do right now, it's 7:23. Again, the open house portion, the display boards, the project team staff, they're out there. If you heard any information here that you want to discuss and review with them, you can feel free to go out there. We will be here till 8 o'clock. We will be in recess until someone else indicates that they would like to provide comments and testimony publicly. And again, if you want to do that, just let the people know out at the sign-in table. Any comments you make need to be submitted before March 9th if you're providing any written comments. But right now it's 7:23 and we are in recess. Okay, it's 7:57 p.m. and we do have someone who has indicated an interest in providing a testimony. So we're going to have that individual come up. Sir, you'll have 3 minutes to provide your testimony. If you could just state your name, spell your name, provide your address, please.
Sure. My name is John Consoli, John. Last name Consoli. I live at 2828 Coxneck Road in Chester, Maryland. I just wanted to make a couple comments. I've lived on Kent Island for about 23 years. I've been commuting for all those years to College Park and back because I work at the university. I have a good sense of what traffic issues are. To me, the traffic issue when I get to the bridge is not a problem. It's the 3 miles or so ahead of the bridge that's the problem. And I think it's partly because of, maybe it's 2 or 3 lanes going into a wider situation. Over that same time, with what they've done with the bridge, with removing the toll booths, other things has helped because you didn't have that other kind of bottleneck. So I'm kind of concerned because I kind of feel like when I get to the bridge, it's not an issue. It's everything ahead of it. So I kind of feel like, I know other than the age of the bridge, I'm kind of concerned that you're solving a problem that doesn't solve the problem. So that was one thing I did want to mention. Of course, the age of the bridge is a big issue. I would really look at how things funnel, because I think that's the big issue. Of course, I don't think any of this addresses the summer issue. I mean, the summer issue is a nightmare. It's going to continue to be a nightmare. I'm just talking about day in and day out. I did have one other thing, but I can't think of what it is.
Take your time. You got.
The only other thing I just want to mention is the presentation is pretty confusing. I mean, you're seeing a lot of options, one after another, to keep up. I'm actually a visual person. I do photography. I do art. Even to me, it was pretty, it was tough to follow. So that's why I kind of took some time, went out and looked at the boards, and, people could kind of explain things. I also kind of misunderstood, thinking the bridge was actually going to be longer to actually kind of go route over Kent Island a little bit instead of just the lanes widening. So I got that understanding, which I think makes sense. Again, I think, you just have to worry about where they come together, because that, you have all this great motion, and then all of a sudden you're getting stuck somewhere. And so I think that's something to really think about. Oh, this is the other thing I was concerned about. I really think there was a huge missed opportunity. There should have been a bridge further north for people in Baltimore. It just is sad that Kent Island keeps having to bear this issue. We're already bearing the issue. You could have really divided and conquered by having a bridge somewhere else, further up. Maybe didn't have to be 8 lanes, and it could have solved a lot of, just all the traffic that comes to the beach, because everybody's taking it. New Jersey, New York, whatever, if they're not going 301. So it's sad that you're just dealing with the same people, same issues, and having to bear the brunt. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, right now it is 8:01 p.m., and this concludes this public hearing session. This is the last public hearing session that the MDTA is holding on the draft EIS and the MDTA RPA. However, we are still accepting comments via online comment form, email, phone, or mail. As a reminder, the public comment period will remain open until March 9th, 2026. Please visit www.baycrossingstudy.com to submit your comments. Thank you, and we look forward to hearing from you regarding the Chesapeake Bay Crossing Study Tier 2 NEPA.